I still remember the day I met him. It wasn't one of those movie moments where everything slows down and the world fades away. It was simpler than that, ordinary, almost forgettable, yet somehow. It changed the course of my entire life. It was a cloudy afternoon. I was sitting in a small cafe downtown, pretending to read a book I'd already finished 3 days ago. I wasn't really reading. I was just lost in my own thoughts about work, my future, and that strange ache of loneliness that comes and goes when you least expect it. Then he walked in. There was nothing extraordinary about him at first glance. He wore a navy blue shirt, his sleeves rolled up, his hair a little messy, like he didn't care much about perfection. But there was something in his eyes, calm, kind, like he saw the world differently. He ordered coffee, and as fate would have it, the only empty seat left was the one across from me. Mind if I sit here? He asked. That's how it began. With a question so ordinary and a moment so small that I didn't even realize it would mark the beginning of my greatest love story. And my deepest heartbreak. We started talking about books, about music, about how both of us were tired of pretending to have everything figured out. His name was Arham. He worked as a civil engineer and had recently moved back to the city after years away. Something about him felt safe, like home. Days turned into weeks, and our coffee shop meetings became a routine neither of us questioned. He'd listen to my endless stories about childhood dreams, and I'd laugh at his dry humor that somehow always landed perfectly. By the time I realized I was falling for him, I was already too deep. One evening, as the cafe lights dimmed and the rain pattered softly outside, he said something I'll never forget. Some people feel like storms, unpredictable, wild. But you, he paused, smiling softly, you feel like the calm after it. That's when I knew I was in love. We started dating soon after. Every moment with him felt cinematic, like life had finally given me a reason to smile without forcing it. We'd go on long drives with no destination, talk about dreams bigger than ourselves, and sometimes just sit in silence, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. He met my family. My mother adored him instantly. She said his eyes reminded her of my late father's kindness. My friends told me I'd finally found the one, and I believed them. After 2 years together, he proposed. It wasn't grand or over the top, it was perfect. We were at our favorite beach spot, where we often watched the waves crash against the rocks. He knelt on one knee, holding a simple silver ring. I don't promise you a life without problems, he said, his voice trembling slightly, but I promise to face them with you. Every single day. I cried. Of course, I said yes. The following months were a blur of wedding preparations, laughter, family gatherings, and countless dreams of our future together. We planned everything, the venue, the guest list, even our honeymoon. I had chosen a light pink lehenga that made me feel like the bride. I always dreamed of being. Everything was perfect until it wasn't. The first sign was small. He stopped answering calls right away. Sometimes he'd text me that he was busy at work or feeling tired. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone gets busy. But soon, busy became his favorite word. Then came the silence, the unanswered messages, the ignored calls. I told myself it was temporary. He loved me. He would never just disappear, but deep down, something in me started to crumble. The night before our engagement ceremony, I called him one last time. He didn't pick up. Instead, I got a text message, short, cold, final. I'm sorry. Don't look for me. That was it. No explanation. No reason. No goodbye. Just those 6 words that shattered everything I knew about love, trust, and forever. When that message popped up on my phone, I'm sorry. Don't look for me. I stared at it for so long that my eyes began to blur. My hands trembled as if my body already understood something my mind refused to accept. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe he was testing me, maybe he was overwhelmed, or maybe it was some kind of misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I tried calling him again, once, twice, 10 times. His phone was switched off. By morning. He was gone, from his apartment, from social media, from every part of my world. It was like he'd been erased. For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The wedding was only a week away, and my mother kept asking why he wasn't answering her calls about the guest list, the cake, the arrangements. I lied. I said he was busy, that he'd call soon. But I knew the truth. He wasn't coming. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor, still wearing my bridal bangles from a fitting earlier that week, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The girl looking back at me didn't look like me anymore. Her eyes were swollen, her lips pale, her face drained of every ounce of joy she once had. I whispered to my reflection, why would he do this to me? The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Days turned into weeks. I visited his office, but they told me he had resigned a few days before he disappeared. No forwarding address, no explanation. Just an empty desk and his name removed from the employee list. I even went to his old apartment. It was locked, cleaned out, as if no one had ever lived there. The neighbors didn't know anything. One of them said he saw Arham leave early one morning with a single suitcase. That was it. Every night, I replayed every conversation we ever had, every word, every gesture, trying to find the moment where things began to fall apart. Did I miss a sign? Was he hiding something? Was it me? I started blaming myself. Maybe I had been too emotional. Maybe I had pushed too hard about the wedding. Maybe I wasn't enough. I didn't realize how dangerous those thoughts were until one evening. I found myself sitting in the dark, staring at our engagement ring, wondering if I'd ever smile again. My mother noticed. She tried to comfort me with soft words and warm meals. But there are some kinds of heartbreaks food can't heal. She told me to delete his photos, to move on, to accept that maybe it was fate. But how do you let go of Sami and Samin who promised you forever? You just learn to carry the weight differently. 3 months passed before something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while cleaning my inbox, I noticed an old email, one I'd never seen before. It was from a name I didn't recognize, Hines. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." My heart pounded as I opened it. Asterisk high. I don't know you personally, but I know Arham, or at least I knew the version of him he showed me. I'm writing this because I think you deserve to know what happened. He wasn't who he said he was. He had another life, one he tried to hide. A wife, a child, a home in another city. When things started to get serious with you, he panicked. He told me he couldn't keep living a double life. And then he disappeared from both of us. Asterisk, my vision went dark. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I could hear my heart beating in my ears. He was married. All that love, all those promises were lies. I couldn't breathe. I reread the email again and again, hoping it would change, that I'd wake up from this nightmare. But it didn't. It was real. And the worst part? She sent a photo. It was him, holding a small boy, maybe 4 years old, smiling the same smile he once gave me. That's when something inside me broke. Not loudly, but quietly, like glass cracking under too much pressure. For days, I didn't leave my room. I didn't talk, didn't cry, didn't scream. Just silence. And then slowly something began to shift. I realized I had 2 choices. I could spend the rest of my life asking why me, or I could start asking what now. One morning, I got up early. The city was still half asleep. I went back to that same cafe where we first met, the same corner seat, the same coffee. It hurt. Oh, it hurt so much, but I needed to face it. To remember and then to release. I looked out the window and whispered, "You lied to me, Arham, but I won't let your lie define who I become." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I was healed, I wasn't, but because I finally understood that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing yourself again, even after someone broke you. A year later, I moved to another city. New job, new apartment. New dreams. Sometimes I still think of him. Not with anger anymore, but with a quiet kind of sadness. Because love, even when it ends in betrayal, teaches you something. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you to see people clearly. And most of all, it teaches you that you can survive anything, even the heartbreak that once felt like it would end you. If you've ever been abandoned, betrayed, or lied to by someone you loved, I want you to remember this. You are not broken. You are just beginning again, and one day you'll wake up, look in the mirror, and see not the person they left, but the person you chose to become. It's strange how heartbreak doesn't end with one big moment. It doesn't end the day you cry for the last time or when the pain becomes a little quieter. It ends in small ways, in moments so subtle that you barely notice you're healing. For me, it began one quiet morning about 6 months after I learned the truth about Arham. I was walking to work, half awake, coffee in hand, when I passed by a couple laughing near a bookstore. They reminded me of us, or rather, the us I thought we were. For a second, my chest tightened, that familiar ache pulsing in my ribs. But then something surprising happened. Instead of sadness, I felt peace. Not because I forgot him, but because, finally, he didn't control my heart anymore. That's when I realized healing doesn't mean the memories disappear. It means they stop defining you. When Arham left, he took more than my trust. He took my sense of safety, the version of myself that believed love could never hurt that much. For months, I blamed myself for everything. But now I see it differently. He didn't leave because I wasn't enough. He left because he was too small for the kind of love I offered, and that realization changed everything, slowly. I started doing things just for me. I redecorated my apartment, painted the walls a soft pastel blue. I replaced every photo frame that once held our pictures with photos of sunsets, books, and moments of joy. I started journaling again, writing letters I would never send, not to him, but to myself. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit by my window, write the words, "You're still here," and feel something warm rise in my chest. Because I was still here, still breathing, still living. And for the first time in a long while, I was proud of that. One day, I decided to visit the seaside where he had proposed to me. Not because I wanted closure from him, I knew I'd never get that, but because I wanted closure from my own pain. The sea was calm that day, its waves brushing gently against the sand. I sat there for hours, watching children play and couples walk by hand in hand. And then I took out the ring, that simple silver band that had once symbolized forever, and held it against the sunlight. It sparkled, catching the reflection of the sky. For a moment, I remembered how happy I was when he placed it on my finger. And then, with a deep breath, I stood up, walked toward the water, and let it fall from my hand. The ring sank beneath the waves. Disappearing into the depths, I whispered, "Goodbye, Arham." The wind carried the words away. It didn't echo back, but I didn't need it to. When I returned home that night, I felt lighter, as if I'd finally released the version of me that was still waiting for him to explain, to apologize, to make sense of the pain, because the truth is, closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide for yourself. And that day, I chose mine. Life moved forward, as it always does. I got a promotion at work, started volunteering at a local animal shelter, met new friends, and one evening, at a small book event downtown, I met someone, a deal. He was nothing like Arham, where Arham was charming and unpredictable. Adil was quiet and steady. He didn't sweep me off my feet, he grounded me. He didn't make grand promises, he kept small ones. And that, I realized, was the difference. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't fall in love all at once this time. It happened slowly, gently, like dawn creeping through a window after a long night. And even though a part of me was still scared, I let it happen. Because love, when it's real, doesn't demand you forget your scars. It holds them softly. Like proof that you survived. It's been 2 years now since that message. Don't look for me. Sometimes, when I look back, it feels like a story that happened to someone else. And maybe in a way, it did. Because the woman I am today isn't the same girl who cried on her bedroom floor, clutching a phone that would never ring again. She's stronger, wiser, softer, but in all the right ways. If you've ever been left without answers, if someone walked out of your life without a goodbye, I want you to hear this. You don't need them to come back to find peace. You don't need to understand why they did it. And you don't need to carry their ghost forever. You are enough, even if they made. You feel like you weren't. You are worthy, even if they didn't see it. And you will love again, not because you have to, but because your heart still knows how. Sometimes I still visit that same cafe where it all began. But now, when I sit at that corner table, I smile. Not because I miss him, but because that's where I found me. And that, I've learned, is the most beautiful ending of all. So today's lesson is, healing doesn't erase the past. It simply makes room for your future.